All right, let's talk about the most critical moment in any project. It's not the kickoff, it's not the midpoint, it's the handshake. That final, formal sign off that says, yes, you delivered exactly what we wanted. But what happens when that handshake is shaky, or worse, doesn't happen at all? Well, today we're going to master the art of that project handshake. This is about turning a moment of anxiety into a moment of achievement. Let's dive in. So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about that moment of truth every project manager faces. Then, we're going to clear up a super common point of confusion, the difference between validating scope and controlling quality. From there, we'll get tactical, what you need to prepare, how to actually run the review, and what to do with the outcome. And we'll wrap it all up with the absolute keys to getting that formal acceptance every single time. You know the feeling? Your team has worked tirelessly. You've poured everything into a deliverable. But when you finally present it, there's a disconnect, a gap between what you built and what the stakeholder expected. We call that the acceptance gap, and it can sink a project. The validate scope process, that is the bridge you build to close that gap for good. I mean, who hasn't been there, right? The team is celebrating, you're proud of the work, it's technically flawless, but the look on the client's face just says it all. That sinking feeling in your stomach, that's the real cost of a mismanaged acceptance process. But here's the thing, it is almost entirely preventionable. This isn't about luck, it's about discipline. So, to avoid those painful moments, we have to stop hoping and start structuring. We need a formal framework for agreement. And that begins with making a crystal clear distinction between two processes that, believe me, get confused all the time. Let's look at the official definition for a second. The two key words you need to zero in on here are formalizing acceptance and objectivity. See, this isn't about getting a casual thumbs up in the hallway. This is a structured, systematic process of getting an official, documented yes. And this slide right here is probably the most important concept we'll cover. Control quality is your team looking inward. You're checking the work against the technical specs. You're asking, did we build it right? Is it bug-free? Does it meet the blueprint? But validate scope? That's when you turn to the customer. You present that deliverable and ask a totally different question. Did we build the right thing? You see the difference? It's correctness versus acceptance. You absolutely have to do quality control first, then you validate the scope. A successful validation meeting isn't one in the meeting itself. It's one in the preparation. You have to walk in with a strategic toolkit, armed with all the documents and data that make the case for you. So let's look at the inputs you need to assemble to give yourself that winning edge. So what's actually in this toolkit? I want you to think of it like you're a lawyer preparing for court. You're not just showing up with the final exhibit. Oh no, you're bringing a whole briefcase of evidence that proves beyond a reasonable doubt that what you've built aligns perfectly with every decision made since day one. Okay, first up, your foundational plans. The scope management plan is your playbook. It literally spells out how you're going to get the sign-off. The requirements management plan defines what success looks like. And the scope baseline, that's your North Star. It's the approved version of the scope that everyone agreed to, and it's what you'll measure everything against. Without these, you're just having a subjective chat. With them, you're conducting a professional audit. Next, you need your supporting intelligence. Your quality reports are the proof that you've done your internal homework. The requirements documentation and that all-important traceability matrix, that's your paper trail. It connects every single feature directly back to an approved requirement. And the work performance data, that's your hard numbers, your metrics that prove compliance. See, you're not there to argue, you're there to present indisputable facts. And of course, the star of the show, the deliverable itself. But listen, here is a non-negotiable golden rule. It must be a verified deliverable. That means it has already passed all your internal quality checks. You never, ever, ever show a client something that your own team hasn't already given a green light to. That's just setting yourself up for failure. Okay, your toolkit is packed. You're prepared. Now it's time to actually execute the review. The good news is there's a clear, straightforward process for how to conduct the validation itself. Let's walk through it. When you boil it all down, it's really this simple. You start by reviewing the documentation we just talked about, remind everyone what was agreed upon, ground the conversation in facts. Then you move on to the inspection of the actual deliverable. And finally, you drive the group to make a formal decision. Now, the main activity here is called inspection, and don't let the simple word fool you. This is not a casual glance or a quick once-over. This is a formal process. It involves measuring, examining, and validating the deliverable against those predefined acceptance criteria. You can call it a review, a walkthrough, whatever. The point is that it's structured and evidence-based. After the inspection, you have to get a decision. You cannot leave that meeting without one. For a simple project, maybe a signature is all you need. But if you've got a room full of stakeholders, you might need a more formal technique, like voting, to get to a clear conclusion. Whatever you do, do not accept "we'll think about it" as an outcome. That's a recipe for endless delays. Once that decision is made, you've got to document it. The process doesn't end with a verbal "okay." It ends when the outcome is written down, recorded, and communicated. And really, there are only 3 possible outcomes, which creates a very clear decision tree for what you do next. So, outcome number 1, the happy path: accepted deliverables. This is what we're all working towards, that formal written sign-off. And that piece of paper, it's not just a formality, it's gold. It's the official key that unlocks the next phase, or even better, lets you move on to closing the project. Okay, but what if a deliverable is not accepted? The first thing is, don't panic. This isn't failure, it's the trigger for another formal process. You document exactly why it wasn't accepted, and this usually leads to a formal change request. This keeps everything structured. It prevents random, off-the-cuff changes and ensures that any rework is properly tracked, estimated, and approved. Now, no matter if you get a yes or a no, the process always generates this third output: work performance information. This is so valuable. It's the data about what's working and what isn't, which deliverables were accepted on the first pass, which weren't, and why. This intelligence gets fed right back into your project, making you smarter for the next round. And the final piece of the puzzle is updating your key project documents. You'll update your lessons learned register with what went well and what could be better next time. And of course, your requirements documents get updated to reflect the final status. This isn't just busy work. It's about closing the loop and maintaining an accurate living history of your project. So we have gone through the what, the why, and the how of validating scope. Now let's bring it all home. Let's distill everything we've talked about into a few essential strategies for truly mastering that project handshake. How do you make this a smooth, successful process every single time? You know, the PMBOK guide itself really says it best. The whole point of this entire process is to bring objectivity to what can be a very subjective moment. And when you do that, you're not just crossing your fingers and hoping for a yes. You are actively engineering it. All right, here it is, your cheat sheet for success. If you take away nothing else, remember these 5 things. 1, define crystal clear, measurable acceptance criteria right at the start. No fuzziness. 2, don't do a big reveal at the end. Involve your stakeholders early and often. No surprises. 3, always run your internal control quality checks before the client ever sees it. 4, do your homework. Show up to the review meeting prepared with all your documentation. And 5, get a formal written decision. Yes or no, nothing in between. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. On your next project, how can you shift your approach? How can you turn that final sign-off from what feels like a high-stakes exam into what it really should be, a celebration of a shared success? Because when you truly master the project handshake, that's exactly what it becomes.